Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Community. And I'm so excited because this is an IRL in-person episode, and I've actually never done one with a team member that wasn't Maria, and I've got Ben here. And Ben joined my team last year, about this time last year, actually, as our co-op student. Maria and I went to the school that has the world's largest co-op program, so we are such a big believer in bringing people on, and we got Ben, and Ben exceeded expectations. He was so awesome that the minute he graduated, we snatched him up. And he has been kind of with us for all these wild ideas that we've been trying. We're always like, Ben, what do you think about this? He's like, I don't know anything about that, but I can learn. So we're so excited because we had this idea of talking about LinkedIn, which Ben has become kind of the expert on our team. So Ben, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Christina. I'm just really excited to be here. It feels like a long time coming on this podcast. Many podcast episode listener. So I'm excited to get my moment in the sun here.
Yeah, it's your moment in the sun. I'm so excited. So really, I want to talk to you about LinkedIn for so many reasons because, one, Ben, you've been with us kind of from the beginning on this LinkedIn journey. And one of the things that's really cool about LinkedIn for what we've been trying to do is that you're not actually like a traditional marketer.
No, it's true. Self-taught everything.
Yeah, it's like Maria and I.
Yeah.
So what's kind of cool about that for me is that I hate to say this, but anyone can do it?
Yeah, I think so. I think sometimes we learn skills and we like to gatekeep them a little bit, being like, oh, this is something that I just am now. But truly, I think that it's if you're willing to invest the energy and the time, I truly think that anybody in any business could be doing this on LinkedIn. It's true.
Yeah, I love it. And something that everyone knows from listening to the show, and Ben knows from being on our team, is that we don't ever I'm not gonna talk about LinkedIn and be like, oh, this is why you should use this, and these are our services. This isn't what this episode's about. It's actually talking about our almost year journey of us trying to maximize LinkedIn, and really it's actually led to our first cold sale ever.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, and it took a while.
It did.
But what was really cool about it is that we kind of had kind of a full journey of trying a bunch of different things, seeing kind of what's worked. And so we're going to talk about that today.
Yeah, I'm excited to get into it.
Yay. Yeah. Awesome. So before we get started, I told Ben, I didn't even tell him what these stats were, but I pulled some stats on LinkedIn that are really important, I think, if you're wondering if LinkedIn's for you. Because one of the things I think, and I don't know, Ben, you've seen this because you listen to my podcast a whole bunch, having to edit it, so sorry about that. But one of the things people hear about with all these different platforms is you're like, oh, Instagram, but is that for me?
Yeah.
Facebook, but is that for me? All of these different things. And I kind of actually felt that about LinkedIn a bit. I was a little LinkedIn's for corporate people. I'm not a corporate person anymore. I'll post a bit on there, but it's really not a sales generator. It's really just kind of because we do B2B sales, but not kind of in the traditional sense. So I was kind of not anti-LinkedIn, but I had some hesitation. But then I kept hearing these stats about LinkedIn where people were like, you should do this, you should do this, you should do this,
Yeah.
Yeah, because I came to you with a dream.
Of course, as you usually do. Yeah.
Yeah. Ben is actually the new owner and operator of a 360 photo booth. So if you want to ever rent that, Ben is the man you can talk to. Because I came to him and I was like, we need a 360 photo booth. Yeah. And he did all the research.
For a future podcast episode, I'm sure.
Yeah. I hope that episode is how we made $1 trillion with a 360 photo booth.
Yeah, you were calling me out last week for saying how sad that would be to make that much money off. I didn't mean it in that way. I think all success is good success. It just seems like that would be funny. But anyway.
That would be funny if that was our claim to $1 trillion, for sure. Okay, so LinkedIn has 830 million members worldwide. So that's quite a bit of people.
Yeah.
A decent amount, I would say. And those numbers are from February, so I only imagine that it's really grown from there. But there are 2 people who join LinkedIn every second. So welcome, new members who have joined while we were joining on here. Then 4 out of 5 LinkedIn users drive business decisions. So they have influence in business decisions, which is so interesting because I think, when we're selling B2B, business to business, sometimes you kind of get stuck with the wrong person. And not that not everyone adds value, but sometimes, you might be chatting with someone and they might not be the person who's even going to make a decision. So they're not really the person that's going to make big impact.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And then lastly is only 1% of active users post on LinkedIn.
I was waiting for that one. Yeah.
You know that one.
Yeah, so we do these searches, right? We filter out contacts, and like that's like the easiest way to filter out like who are the decision makers or not. Or like are they like posting on LinkedIn? Are they trying to like seek like being a thought leader? Are they trying to like are they hiring? Are they getting business connections? And like there aren't that many people that are doing that, so it's kind of really hard to tell the wheat from the chaff or whatever they say. I don't know.
I've never heard that one.
No, I don't know. I think I might have made that up.
My friend Kira does that all the time. She's like, she makes those up. I'm like, what? And she's like, no.
Yeah.
Exactly. So the thing about most of the platforms I think is really interesting is that it's actually a great opportunity to become an early adopter.
Yeah.
When we have the opportunity to become an early adopter, that's kind of where the magic kind of happens because we're able to actually be like the first to go somewhere and really impact a new network. And I'm actually seeing that a lot with Threads right now. I'm spending a bit of time on Threads, like nothing too much really because I don't really have the capacity. But like we've already gotten like one kind of lead and client from Threads. I've gotten a number of Instagram connections, a number of podcast guest opportunities that I probably wouldn't have if I hadn't been on there.
Yeah.
And so it's the same thing with LinkedIn where if you have the opportunity to post like multiple times and you're kind of connecting with new audience and people are seeing you as like this thought leader, there's a lot of opportunity there.
So much. And there's just so many types of like posts and content that can come from LinkedIn, and it all kind of works together for good. I think that like, we've really gone for like a pretty diverse strategy on your LinkedIn, and I think we've seen how like different ideas can be repurposed, but they also can all like funnel different people like to create traffic for your page, and it's been really cool.
Yeah. Okay, so why don't we just get started? I just want to also say, so one, we got our first client from LinkedIn. That was amazing. But something else that's a cool stat that's important for people to know is we've actually tripled my LinkedIn connections this year.
Yeah.
That's a pretty impressive stat.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I feel like when you like, it's hard because like I'm seeing it every day, but it's like kind of those changes like, oh, you got so tall, like an old person might tell you, and like you're like, oh, I feel like I'm the same height, but it's like if you haven't seen it in a while, then it's like, yeah, it actually is insane. Yeah, like 6,000.
Yeah, and I've been on LinkedIn since the dawn of time.
Yeah,
probably like close to 15 years.
Wow.
Yeah, like because I made my LinkedIn in university, and I'm much older than you are at this time, and we'll continue to age as you do. So for me to have grown 3 times in 1 year, that's pretty impressive. And so, some of the things I just want to talk about one thing before we get into this list, and I have to tell you, this is Ben's first podcast opportunity, which I mentioned. So he came to me with a list, being like, "This is what we can talk about." I typically don't entertain those types of lists, but for Ben, I'll do anything because Ben's the best. So the one thing I want to talk about that isn't on this list is there is this perception of LinkedIn being cringy. Like around, well, 2 things. One, LinkedIn being cringy because you get so many DMs and the DMs are so like, you know, I got one recently that was like, hi, can I help you triple your sales? I didn't respond because it didn't even say my name. Hi, can I triple your sales? Blah, 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 blah. And then I didn't respond, and they said, hi, Christina, I'm worried about you. Are you okay? And I was like, that's psychological warfare. Like, I'm not into this.
Yeah,
but, you know, I think, you know, from your experience of, like, working kind of like on my LinkedIn, we've worked on your LinkedIn a little bit with client stuff that we've tried. How do we get around that cringe factor?
Yeah, I think when you said that, the first thing that came to my mind was something that I heard you kind of say as one of your big learnings from entrepreneurship, which is like embarrassment is like the cost to entry. And I think that like, obviously I've been hiding behind the guise of Christina Barthold-Sagarda, which has been a benefit to me for last year. But even like the last few months, I've started to do some of these things with my own LinkedIn, and I've had to be like, oh, these people are actually responding not to Christina, but like to Ben. Like that's so embarrassing, or like no one's opening these messages. And I think that like, I think you're gonna have to get past that on any platform that you're on, is that like if you really go hard in these like outreach efforts, like not everything's gonna land, and frankly a lot of it's not gonna land. To get for us to get our first like sale on LinkedIn, we got ghosted by hundreds of people, maybe 1,000. I don't know, but it's true. Like it is kind of awkward, but I think that once you can kind of get past that embarrassment and kind of see that end goal in mind, like I think it is there and it's super tangible. And it's like these people aren't like insulted by your message; they're just like trying to go throughout their day and run their business too. And I think as long as like your messages aren't getting in the way of that, then it's like no one's mad at you. Like you just kind of have to kind of stick to your strategy. Yeah.
You know what's interesting, Ben? My mentor, Chris, and I kind of told you this already, but I haven't shared this on the podcast yet. I was going to do a whole episode about this, but I will share it here. One of the things him and I had talked about is as our agency has scaled so much, like we've really grown, like we double almost every year in revenue, and it's been so, like really just like the ride of me and Maria's life so far. But what's been so cool about our agency is that everything that we've done has been up to this point has been organic, like has been relationship based marketing, some social media on Instagram, some LinkedIn, no DM sales, like. No, like, cold outreach. That's never really been kind of part of it. We did some cold outreach around helping some businesses get some grants, which was awesome. And you did that, but we haven't really done anything cold. So I was talking to my mentor, Chris, and I was like, oh, Chris, I really want to grow our business. I have this audacious goal. I want to, in 2025, what if we tripled our revenue? Like, that would be nuts. And I finally feel like we've got the right team and we have all these amazing people. Like, what would that look like? And Chris was like, okay, well, what have you tried? Like, what have you tried to sell? And I was like, well, mostly, like, I meet people and, just referrals. And he's like, you haven't tried anything.
Right.
And I was like, what? And he was like, the best part of the situation for you, Christina, is that it's all low-hanging fruit for you. Is like, you've actually done the hardest part of selling, which is where you go and you have to meet people and you're, exerting personal effort or whatever. And he's like, you haven't done anything. You've barely done any marketing. And he's like, so that's such a gift. He's like, but like, you haven't really tried anything. So now it's time to try some stuff. Yeah. And that's kind of what we've been living in right now, where it's kind of like, I've done a lot of relationship-based selling. I've done a lot of events. I've done a lot of speaking, and that's been great. But eventually also as a business owner, I have to kind of take a bit of a step back and not be, so Dora the Explorer-esque and take a bit of time to be able to do some systems. And I think you've been really like integral in that and us thinking about different ways to do that. And so I'm encouraging listeners too, like if you're kind of like, okay, I'm trying to figure out like how to sell, there's nothing wrong with DMs. There's nothing wrong with cold marketing, but it's just about the way you do it. Like, you don't need to be messaging people in a cringy way that's like, hi, like, how are you? Like, it's doing it in your own way. And we've actually talked a lot about that where, you'll write a draft for me and I'm like, nah, that's not my way. And I don't like it like that, or that's a bit too cold for me. And that's been kind of an interesting kind of learning between you and I, like working on it.
Yeah, totally. I think that, it's so obvious the messages you get back on LinkedIn, because like when you're messaging all the people too, it's like you're getting back some real gems of conversations to have in the DMs, and you're getting back some people who are messaging you back just as cold, if not way colder than you reached out. And it's really easy to tell the people that are like trying to add that level of like intentionality to the DM, like to make it like a warm lead, like a nurturing lead, versus the people who are just like, I'm looking for $10,000 today, please. Yeah. Thank you.
Totally. And even like we made one sale for sure, but earlier on in our LinkedIn journey, you got me connected with someone who ended up coming to High Vibe Women, ended up donating in the bags, Sugute, who ended up being on the podcast. She was such a fabulous guest. And that was all from actually like Ben kind of managing my LinkedIn and getting me connected with like-minded people. That wasn't for a sale. So there's always like, and now she's a great referral partner. So I think that's another piece too, is that it doesn't necessarily like what we're going to talk about today in full isn't going to be like, hey, like this is how you get your next $10,000 on LinkedIn. Right. But it's also going to be about like, how do you actually use LinkedIn to grow your community and get in front of new people and like build your audience in a way that's intentional.
Yeah, so much of the value I think is non-monetary, and people don't always like to hear that when you're selling social or especially LinkedIn. It's like you can invest a lot of money in this and not get that $10,000 sale. But I think that everything truly on your LinkedIn is all working together for good. And I think that we've seen so much in terms of people doing inquiries on the website, joining like a social business club. Like there's so many different ways for people to like work with us and get in our world and create referrals for us. And it's not always going to be that big sale. So yeah.
Okay, we'll get to your list. And then this is the last thing I'm going to very quickly say, is so something Maria and I know is that people need to see your content like multiple times before they make a purchase from you. And it's the same thing with LinkedIn. I would say it's even colder on LinkedIn, where people need to see you more and more and more on LinkedIn and see what you're up to. And I've even seen it, like I have a friend who has I think it's 250,000 followers on Instagram. And she DM'd me and was like, what are you doing on LinkedIn? You're always the first person that comes up for me. Yeah. Always. Like, you're posting every day. Like, this is so good. Like, oh, I saw that. That's so great. Like, what's your strategy? And we're going to share what that strategy is today. But what's interesting about that is that, really, it's that you're building that know, like, and trust, and that frequency meter with people. So it's like the more that you see someone, it's like Alex Hormozi, which I know I just gifted you some of his books. But with Alex Hormozi, I see that man literally everywhere all of the time. Yeah. Like, he's everywhere. That man could sell me probably anything. But I'm not even sure what his success has been. I no doubt it's there. Yeah. But I know about like gym launch and all of that stuff. But like, he could not have all that success. And I wouldn't know, but because of the frequency, that authority is automatically built in your head because you're like, oh, I see them everywhere. Oh, that's great. So I think it's also remembering that like you're building know, like, and trust, not for the sale that might come from that cold DM, but that person who might connect with you, they might not need whatever you're selling today, but they might need it in a year. They might know somebody that needs it. So you're building that connection.
Yeah. If you don't know what you do, then people can't work with you. So I think like that first step is just being like consistent too in those messaging. It's like not just like posting random things every day, but it's like what do we want to be known for, and like really thinking about that and creating consistent content that like reflects those messages and those values. And I think that has been a really big win for your LinkedIn.
Yeah. Okay, let's get into it. Okay, so first, so we talked about you want to talk about automated outreach versus all manual, and that's interesting because I think I have always had such a rub on automated outreach, which we've talked about before. Because you know, Ben is a boy, and he writes things differently than I do. I'm like a heart emoji, and so sometimes Ben writes stuff for me, and I'm like, oh no, that's too cold. I can't send that. Like, you know. So what has been kind of your journey in terms of the automation piece? Because I know we do use a tool, and we'll talk about that. But I'd love to hear a little bit about kind of like how you get kind of through that of you know, the messaging out there, maybe finessing that message.
Yeah, I think that the reality is like we want to connect with a lot of people on a daily basis. We want to currently be like having new conversations, getting like the word out about like new offerings, new ideas, building that kind of stuff up. And like we can't be like spending hours like looking for these right people and like, you know, one by one like connection requesting them. So I think that like this automated tool has been a huge win to kind of like automate some of those processes, but like still with like that like personnel element that we hope to do. So like it's been like that first message, that touch point, that generalized like outreach, like, hey, like here's a connection request, here's like who I am and what I'm doing, and then like the follow-ups I think are how we've been able to really take off with like these like personal conversations and getting things out of the DMs. So I think that there's a lot of like people that might be thinking, oh, like automated is like it's too cold, it's too fake, I can see through it too easily. But I think that you're not necessarily giving it enough of a chance to being like, oh, this actually might be a way to just save me time and just set me up, kind of cue me up for those conversations, rather than having to like always be searching for them myself. It's not about not doing the outreach or like the connection or the human side. It's about how do I get something to queue it up for me, so then it's just like sitting there right in my DMs when I wake up in the morning. That's kind of been more so our approach to it, and I think that's been really cool.
Yeah. And just so you guys know too, something that Ben's been working on it with us is like, so our approach hasn't just been like, hi, do you need social media help? Like that, or like we run like kick-ass social media and podcasts, like, you know, campaigns for people. We do. But really like what our approach has been like a bunch of different pieces. One, I think, is we found niches that we serve really well. And so serving those people, reaching out to them and saying, hi, like we do social media for these types of businesses. If that's of interest to you, let us know. But if not, like follow along. We'd love for you to be part of the journey. And I've seen those people where maybe they haven't responded to the DM, but they engage with our posts or things like that. Like not everyone needs what we're selling right away, right? So even like some of the industries that we've had a lot of success with are like people like naturopaths, interior designers, hair salons, like different things like that. And looking at who our most successful type of client is, like their kind of like archetype, and then being able to kind of target those people because we know we've got great success with people. And I also want to say, like serving or selling is serving, right? Like these people might need social media help and they don't know who to go to or who to trust. I know we provide an exceptional service filled with so much integrity. So getting in front of them to me is a no-brainer. But we haven't just been like, you know, spitting everywhere. It's been really intentional about trying to figure out who we've connected with.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I mean, you could, on these automated tools, I think the mistake that you could make, and I think we even made this mistake maybe at the beginning, was just kind of like blasting it out, being like, someone's going to need this. Like, let's just kind of like attack anybody, attack anybody. Let's reach anybody. Let's just kind of go for it. And I think that as we've gotten more experience, as we've kind of like realized like who do we best serve, we've been able to really get it more and more specific to the point where we're doing these like smaller kind of targeted niche searches, and they don't necessarily yield like the greatest amount of like numbers of connections all the time, but the quality is increased. And I think that that's been kind of a cool journey that we've been on, from kind of being like just kind of casting a wide net to actually, oh no, we actually know who we want to to work with and who wants to work with us, and we're going to go after those people because we think that we can give them the most value, and I think that that's been really effective for us.
Yeah. I love that. And that brings it back to like this idea of like 4 to 5 LinkedIn users drive business decisions. On Instagram, we don't know that.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, you know, when you're messaging, like say your dream client is, I'm like blanking on any brand. I'm like, say your dream client is Shark Ninja. You really want to like do some content for some blenders. That's not my dream client, but I would take them for High Vibe Women for sure. You know, if you're messaging kind of directly their company page on Instagram, like you're probably not going to get that far. But if you're looking for a recruiter, you're looking for the partnerships manager, you're looking for something like that, you're able to target your search so much better, and you're able to kind of get in their like inbox. And that's been interesting for us because yes, we've used it for sales for social. We've also used it for partnerships for High Vibe Women, and this is where I've actually seen more success has been we've like gotten some great calls in the calendar and had some calls with people who were like, okay, we love this brand. Who's the partnerships manager there? We connect directly. We tell them what we're up to. We ask who's the best person on their team for us to connect with. Often it's them. Like you've done enough of a like good search that it is the right person. And then it's getting on the phone. It's getting into an email chain, and it's like starting to build that connection.
Yeah, totally. And I think that like people are on LinkedIn because they're in a position that they care about. They're trying to like build their career. They're trying to make decisions, right? And I think that like if you're connecting with those users that are active, they're probably actually like excited by the opportunity to actually, like, if you're a partnership manager, you need to create partnerships. And like if someone is like who seems really warm and has a great offering and wants to add value back to you and is in your DMs, like you're gonna want to talk to them. It's not as much of a burden. I think you talk about that so much about like the reciprocity. Like we're trying to pitch someone like, hey, we actually think this is actually aligned to you, and we wouldn't have reached out if we didn't think that there was actually some value here for you in your position, and we're actually gonna offer you that just for like a bit of like a mutual exchange. And I think that a lot of the people have actually been like really excited to explore the opportunity rather than be like, oh no, like I don't want to give you anything. It's like they recognize that there is actually something in this for them as well.
100%. And I think that's the really important part. You brought up such a good point, which I knew you would, which is why you got invited to the podcast. But you brought up such a good point of the fact that like we're not just hitting anybody up in the sense of like we want to know that person is a good fit for us. So when we are choosing people like to, you know, DM or to connect with, we're actually choosing people who are like, we know we could serve these people. I know we do a great job with their social. I know we'd move it to the next level. That person is a thought leader. They should have a podcast. Why don't they have a podcast? These High Vibe Women sponsors, I would never take money from someone for High Vibe Women that I didn't think would get an ROI. So it's like these great tech tools that we use every day, we talk about for free anyway. Why wouldn't we connect with them to see if they want to have an activation, or they'd love to provide a discount, or they'd like to give a door prize? Like, duh, like it's a no-brainer. And we're doing them a favor. Yeah,
totally. Yeah. And I think that as we continue to do this more, right, like the people who don't see the value right now, or they just miss out for whatever reason, they're gonna now go and see like, oh wow, that partnership got a really good ROI on that. Like maybe I should explore that at a future event. I think like all of this obviously has to be in partnership with like the value coming from the back end. So it's like on the High Vibe Woman front, like I'm not concerned, but like the High Vibe Woman event now needs to have this ROI for people, which it always does. So like we are confident that like as we continue to do these events and to build these partnerships, like we just have a better offering every single time because we know that we can provide.
Yeah. Love that.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for listening to Community with me, Christina Bartold, and I'm just so excited to continue the conversations. If you're looking to grow your community and learn more about social, join us at thesocialbusinessclub.ca and use the code podcast to get your first month for $1. Share this episode with your friends and on social, or leave a review. It means the world.